awesome. That's good. Okay, I guess we're about ready to start. So everybody find your beautiful seats right there. I take my seat with me wherever I go. But is everybody in the spot they're going to be? Yeah? Okay, good. Good crowd interaction. I can feel the energy. Okay. Well, it's going to be a long day. We still got a lot of stuff to do, so we thought we'd do something that would be a little peppier. Okay? And this will be fun. I'm going to divide up. I'm going to segregate the congregation here. First, it's going to be everybody over here on this side, this whole section and all this. See, you guys are like, you know, you make me feel so warm and toasty. So that's going to be your word. Your word's going to be warm. Okay? Can you guys say warm? Warm. Okay, so every time I take this stick, this is my wonderful pointing stick. When I point this stick at you, you're going to say, warm. Feel the energy. That was so warm and beautiful. Ready? Warm. That's good. That's good. And they're almost not paying attention. Did you? Yeah. Okay, that's good. All right. Get used to that. Okay. But now over here, I'm going to take just this middle section right here. Okay. Now you guys are rock solid, like ice. It's like cold. The word cold comes to mind. So your word's going to be cold. So every time I point at you with this, you're going to say cold. Awesome. And so it's going to be like cold. Right, almost like, but cold. Right. So it's a little different. Okay, that's good. So we got that. Now over here, you guys are really awesome. All right, this is the really good-looking people over here. Don't tell the rest of them. So your word's going to be hot. All right, so when I point this at you, you're going to say hot. Hot. That's good. Okay. And so if I point the stick, they're going to say hot. That's right. Okay, good. Okay, so you guys ready for this? You think you can handle it? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Now try to stay awake. Here we go. Oh! I can't turn this thing off. Does that feel pretty good so far? You don't get many opportunities to yell in church. And so I just want to give you this chance. And so we'll try it some more because somebody doesn't know their cue. Okay. I already did that trick on them, and you guys fell for it.
Dan, hey, what are you doing?
Oh, look, it's a picnic basket. That's okay. I'm just leading everybody in something I like to call the all-temperature cheer. Huh?
What?
See, I just came out here and I was leading the whole fan club, and we were going to do a really cool cheer and have a good time and get energized before lunch, you know? Because after lunch, everybody wants to go right to sleep.
What fan club?
The fan club, the Kent Hovind fan club. Right?
Dan, I hate to burst your bubble, but this is not a Kent Hovind fan club.
No, it is. This is the fan club, and they've elected me their president.
Really?
Yeah.
I
mean, aren't we all here to worship Kent Hovind this weekend?
Oh, no, see, Dan, I don't think it's all about that. I think we're here to worship our Creator. Yeah.
But I got this cool button. It's like, look, this is not Dr. Hovind. This is just a picture of him.
Oh.
Huh? So I got all these buttons out there for the fan club. You know, we're all members. That's like the membership button. It's all going to be good.
I'm sorry, Dan. This isn't a Kent Hovind fan club, man. This is a Creator fan club. That's
Creator
not what boot
fan
camp
club
is about. Boot camp is all about worshiping the Creator and spreading the creation message and tying with it the gospel. How to get saved. That's what this is about. What is that thing anyway?
This is an ugly stick.
Oh, you must.
Yeah.
Did you beat yourself with it or something?
No, but it likes you. Look at that. Okay.
Man.
Well, okay,
Well,
so you guys are here for the Creator instead of Kent Hovind? Okay.
Sorry.
All right,
man.
well then, hopefully I can return these buttons.
Good luck with that. Thanks, Dan. Give him a hand, guys. Dan. Here to speak to us is Dr. Carl Baugh. Needs no introduction. Dr. Baugh, please come share with us.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Dr. Baugh. Thank you for
God
being
bless
here.
you. So good to be here. Well, I know we're here to worship the Creator, no doubt about it, but we can appreciate the messenger. Dr. Ken Hovind, would you stand? I want you to know we love you. You're one of our genuine heroes. We don't worship you, but we love you. Now, every person who bears the responsibility of giving the truth attracts, like a magnet, a few people who oppose his position. That's true of all of us, right? I think every once in a while a fellow needs a little encouragement. Let's give him a standing ovation of appreciation. Yes. Okay. You're batting 1,000. You want to come up and talk now? He can handle it, absolutely. He picked me up at midnight last night at the airport, and I don't know when he ever sleeps. I don't know when I sleep. That's fine. I'm going to sleep right now. Hopefully, you won't go to sleep. It's my turn to sleep. I don't know how long I have. Okay, whatever you indicate. I've got 90 PowerPoint programs here, so we'll just keep going. Now, I'm going to ask you to, let's make sure this works. Would you flip it over so I can see if, yes. Now, you think it's fun in here. I spent about 3 minutes by invitation over with the kids. They are live wires. They're getting the truth in a way that they will never forget. So I commend the entire staff. Okay, yes. I've been assigned by Marlissa the subject of speaking on hyperbaric canopy, hyperbaric oxygen that heals. And that will be the general topic, but I want you to know that I have no medical background, even though I have paid a lot of medical bills. So what I will be doing is giving you anecdotal evidence and technical evidence that the creation model works. You need to consider going by the table on this side for Creation Evidence Museum. Everything that I'll say to you this morning and part of what I'll say to you this evening is in video format, 3D illustrated in many sessions, and there's a book, Why Do Men Believe Evolution Against All Odds? 10 chapters, over 200 technical references showing that evolution is a bucket without a bottom. It can't hold water. And many academicians admit that that's the case. My purpose in this session is to show you that creation does work, that it's academically viable, that it is biblically consistent, and I want you to know that you have not been deceived by your Creator. The creation model requires concentration from a vantage point. We have been programmed, as Dr. Quazzo indicated, and as all our speakers are indicating, we've been programmed by an entire generation to believe, to accept the theory of evolution. And it is a faith-based theory. But the other speakers are addressing that. I want to show you that the creation model as a model does work. And I want to show you that it depends on the perspective for you to accept this. Our children are precious to all of us, and these kids do not always hear what we're saying. How many have recognized that the kids, we're not always getting through? They don't always get what we're saying. They don't quite get it right. And we have a generation that hasn't quite gotten it right. I want to bring to your attention the fact that these kids, you got to love. I received an email recently from the daughter of the late Attorney General of the United States in the Reagan administration, Penny Lorenzen, whose husband is one of my colleagues, Dr. Lee Lorenzen. He's doing research that will affect our generation in energized water and energized products, etc. Penny sent me this information, and I just have to pass it on to you. The following excerpts are actual answers given on history tests in Sunday school. I'm going to see if the pointer works. It doesn't, so you'll have to listen to my dialogue. These are actual answers given on history tests and in Sunday school quizzes by children between 5th and 6th grade ages in Ohio. If we were to ask the same questions in Texas, Oklahoma, New Jersey, New York, Florida, we would get something like the same answers. Now, we want to see if they get it right. Okay. First of all, they were asked about ancient Egypt. And one student wrote, "Ancient Egypt was old. It was inhabited by gypsies and mummies who all rode in hydraulics. They lived in the Sahara Desert. The climate of the Sahara is such that all the inhabitants have to live elsewhere." Well, made a good stab at it, but didn't quite get it right. And we have academicians who are very sincere in their approach to life origins, but don't quite get it right. Well, let's see if the kids get it right here. Moses led the Hebrew slaves to the Red Sea, where they made unleavened bread, which is bread made without any ingredients. Moses went up on Mount Sinai. Now, didn't quite get it right. I want to emphasize to you leaders that we have it perfectly clear in our minds, but we don't always get through to the recipients and to these kids. He went up on Mount Sinai to get the 10 commandos. He died before he ever reached Canada, but the commandos made it. Well, that kid didn't quite get it right. And here's one of my favorites. Solomon had 300 wives and 700 porcupines. He was an actual hysterical figure. Now, I want you to notice as these kids give these reports, they don't get the facts right, but they're able to spell complicated words, meaning they're listening, but they have a preconceived disposition, and it doesn't quite get through. We are trying to communicate with a generation that knows not Joseph, nor Joseph's God, is raised on rock music and humanism, and we don't always get through. When we get through to anybody, we're thankful, right? And Dr. Hovind, you're getting through to a lot of people. Okay, he was an actual hysterical figure as well as being in the Bible. Sounds like he was sort of busy too. He was quite busy. The Greeks were a highly sculptured people, and without them we wouldn't have history. The Greeks also had myths. Now, a myth is a young female moth. Didn't quite get it right. Oh, you'll like this one. Socrates was, now these are actual answers, written answers. Socrates was a famous old Greek teacher who went around giving people advice. They killed him. Now, for the pastors in this audience, be careful. You get killed for giving advice. He later died from an overdose of wedlock. That'll get you. Which is apparently poisonous. After his death, his career suffered a dramatic decline. I would say that's the case. Now, one or two of you are still rather stoic. You're not getting the idea. I'm not getting through to you. You're not quite getting, those who are not laughing yet are not quite getting it right. You've got to understand that we have to really communicate all the truth to this generation. We have to communicate it vividly. So for the two who haven't laughed yet, enjoy. In the first Olympic Games, Greeks ran races, jumped, hurled biscuits, and threw the java. The games were messier than they show on television today. Okay, one of my favorites. Julius Caesar extinguished himself on the battlefields of Gaul. The Ides of March murdered him. Didn't quite get it right because they thought he was going to be made king. Dying, he gasped out, "Same to you, Brutus." Not et tu, Brute. Same to you, Brutus. Okay. Delegates from the original 13 states formed the Contented Congress. Thomas Jefferson, a virgin, sure hope so, at least the kid knew there was a term, a virgin, and Benjamin Franklin were two singers of the Declaration of Independence. Franklin discovered electricity by rubbing two cats backward. That'll do it. He knew a lot about physics and got scratched in the process. Franklin discovered electricity by rubbing two cats backward and also declared, "A horse divided itself against itself cannot stand." He was right again. He was a naturalist for sure. Franklin died in 1790 and is still dead. Okay, I think this is my favorite of all, and we're almost finished. We'll get down to the topic I was assigned. Abraham Lincoln became America's greatest president. Lincoln's mother died in infancy, and he was born in a log cabin which he built with his own hands. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves by signing the Emasculation Proclamation. I don't know how the kids spell those complicated words, but still got it mixed up a bit. Johann Bach wrote a great many musical compositions and had a large number of children. In between, he practiced on an old spinster which he kept up in the attic. I think he meant spinster piano. Practiced on an old spinster which he kept up in the attic. Bach died from 1750 to present. Bach was the most famous composer in the world, and so was Handel. Handel was half German, half Italian, and half English. He was very large. Beethoven wrote music even though he was deaf. He was so deaf that he wrote loud music and became the father of rock and roll. He took long walks in the forest, even when everyone was calling for him. I wish I had Ken Hovind to read these. These are just too much. Beethoven expired in 1827 and later died for this. That'll get you. Well, so much. They didn't quite get it right. We have an entire generation that has not quite gotten it right. 2 nights ago, I listened to a debate after midnight between John Morris, Jonathan Wells, and Michael Roos. After the debate, in which John Morris did a marvelous job, Jonathan Wells did a good job, Michael Roos did a lousy job. And how many heard that debate? Any of you hear that debate? Michael Roos is at the University of Florida, professor of evolutionary history, and would never answer the questions directly as to whether evolution is based in fact. I've had Dr. Hovind on my program on creation of the 21st century a number of times. I'd like for Dr. Quazzo and others to come, and I'd like for our guest to be guest on the program. creation in the 21st century. Recently, I had Dr. Mastropialo, who was the scientist, a leading evolutionary scientist, who was the leading kinesiologist, the biologist, knowing all the response of the human cardiovascular system, the musculature system, and the response of the metabolism. There was a program some decades ago in which they offered $210,000 for a team that could fly across the British Channel, some 18 plus miles, with human-powered flight. The brilliant kinesiologist who devised the system and his engineers built the craft. He trained the young man to fly with endurance, trained him to fly, trained him to pedal, and to flap the wings of the craft, and flew across the English Channel. Dr. Mastropialo was my guest for a reason. He's become a creationist. I asked him on the program. Of course, I wouldn't have him on the program if he were not a creationist. I asked him on the program, I said, "Are you a creationist?" He said, "Absolutely." And I said, "Was it a shock to you, being one of our generation's leading evolutionary scholars, a shock to you to find that evolution was suspect?" He said to me on the program, and it'll air sometime in the future, so you'll want to watch Creation of the 21st Century. Dr. Mastropialo said one of the greatest, in fact, the greatest disappointment of my life was to learn as a scientist. I'd been programmed that you cannot have faith in a creator and be a genuine scientist. So I eliminated all reference to the creator, even in my thought process. He said one of the greatest disappointments to me was to find that evolution was based in philosophic supposition and presupposition and had no basis in fact whatsoever. Then he explained, as a world-class biologist, if we're talking about horizontal variation, certainly we all vary horizontally. All species, all kinds, all living systems vary horizontally. How many dogs do you have, dog kinds do you have in Pensacola? Well, how many streets do you have in Pensacola? We vary, and that is a disposition that God put, the Creator, God, and He's the God of the Bible, put within kinds for adaptability and variability. So Dr. Mastropialo then explained, he said, there is not one single shred of evidence, scientific evidence, empirical evidence, supporting evolution of the introduction of new genetic information that would produce any viable life form. All the variation is downward in nature or horizontal at best. And I said, "Are you a creationist?" He said, "Not only am I a creationist, I'm a recent creationist. That is, I believe the world and the entire universe," he said, "were created within the last few thousand years." He said, "I'm a biblical creationist and a scientific creationist." He said, in fact, and here's the point I want to make. He said, "I have the Life Science Award Challenge." He said, there are 45 leading evolutionary educators and propagandists in our generation. 45. He said, "I've challenged every last one of them to appear with me as a scientist before an appellate judge, not a justice of the peace, but an appellate judge who knows the process." And he said, the question is this: I will put up $10,000. My opponent will put up $10,000. I think you're putting up, what, 100,000 or $250,000 now. He said, I'll put up 10,000. He said, my opponent will put up 10,000. He said, this is the question. Whoever wins before the judge is awarded all the money. Question is creation scientific? And is evolution religious? I said, Dr. Mastropialo, how many takers have you had? He said, not one. They know that their tenets are supported by philosophy, by faith, by religion. they know they're not supported factually. And they know that before an appellate judge, there's incredible evidence for intelligent design. Hopefully in a moment I'll get to just a bit of that before my 16 hours and 42 minutes. No, that's 23 minutes and 9 seconds are up. Dr. Hovind, you've offered $250,000. And what's the issue? Prove evolution scientifically. Have you had a single serious taker? Not a single serious taker to $250,000, and the money's put up on deposit. I mean, you can get it. Not mine, somebody else. Yes. Put up the money. It's there and waiting. Not a single taker who can prove that evolution is scientific. But we have an entire generation that hasn't quite gotten it right. This is the theory that they postulate. This is the concept of evolution. We at the Creation Evidence Museum have illustrated it not as a column. Carl Sagan, before dying, admitted that it is not really a column, it's an oval. For the concept is, what's that rat doing running across there? No fair with cell phones. Oh, no, that was the rat running across. Okay. What's that rat doing there? When I first started excavating in Glen Rose and attracted a lot of opposition because I went on television and radio, and now there's 6 million people a week who hear that truth, and I'm very grateful for that, but I still get a lot of opposition because I stated that we had found human footprints and had found cat prints in the same stratum along with dinosaur footprints. And we have demonstrated that. In fact, I just got back from Germany, where 6 of our key artifacts are on display at this very moment. One of them a human handprint, another human finger, found on the very same layer with the dinosaur footprints, a hammer, and then we have the Meister print, which is a human sandal print with a trilobite, Elrathia gingai trilobite in the heel and one in the toe. So the creation model is demonstrated to be factual if people will listen to the information. Here we have the model of evolution. When I first began to talk about this at Glen Rose, they said it's impossible for a mammal to have been back in the Cretaceous period. But now they have found their own mammals, and they call this mammal, this is little Morgie, Morganocodon elroyi, and they call this little mammal, let's go back and let's watch that mammal run. Where's that sound you gave a moment ago from the cell phone, that little mammal? Now, but they say this is man's oldest grandmother. But I want you to notice that if evolution is true, we have some real problems. And the red doesn't come out, so let's just get to the next concept. According to evolution, we began with a Big Bang some 16 or so billion years ago. Debris, trash from that Big Bang settled in the arm of Orion of the Milky Way galaxy and throughout the universe, ultimately producing our Earth and our solar system. And from that, living systems sprang. And if there's enough mass in the universe, ultimately all of these 225 billion galaxies, each comprised of over 500 million stars, ultimately will collapse back upon themselves. We began with a Big Bang. If evolution is true, then we will end in the Big Crunch, a fiery explosion. Or if there's not enough mass, but if instead all these systems extend out and out and out, ultimately they're going to get so far apart that you can't get enough informational exchange, so they're going to die in the Big Freeze. Or if it's balanced fairly well, due to the second law of thermodynamics, entropy, we're losing usable information and energy, so it's going to die in the Big Fizzle. It began with the Big Bang, will end either with the Big Crunch, the Big Freeze, or the Big Fizzle. The psyche, the basic philosophic mindset of evolutionary theory is that nobody's going anywhere. Hopelessness is written into the entire concept. In fact, leading evolutionists that I've debated, or who have been debated by other creationists, get very irritated when we insist on absolute truth. Well, I have found absolute truth in a written form. It's called the Bible. I've found absolute truth in the personal form. His name is Jesus Christ. But that's another subject and another topic altogether. I don't know if these will come out clearly. I hope so. In every one of these eras, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Cenozoic eras, periods, epochs, and events, in every one of them, we find evidence of human fossils and human artifacts, meaning that the geologic column is not essentially the history of the development of living forms, but the geologic column is all sedimentary deposit that was laid down in a worldwide flood. And tonight in the lecture, I want to show you tangible evidence worldwide for that flood. The creation model, and I have less than 18 minutes to give this to you. Are you still awake? I want to show you that creation works, the creation model works. It does not begin with a model or with the universe, it begins with a creator. Cause and effect. In a moment, I'll try to give you some figures. Let's just go right to the heart and soul of this, and then I want to talk about your brain in the next few minutes. I want to show you that you're more awesome than you promised that girl you were when you courted her. Or she's more awesome than you have realized heretofore. In the creation model, the basic tenets are as follows. I'll have to verbally describe this because my pointer is not strong enough to overcome the screen angle. Prior to the flood, the diameter of the earth, are you awake? We're going to run fast quickly, and if you don't get all of this, it's all illustrated in 3D animation in the video series called The Model at the back at the Creation Evidence Museum table. Much of what I'm going to give you on the human brain is in the book, Why Do Men Believe Evolution Against All Odds? But let me give you a composite if you can run fast. Prior to the flood of Noah's day and prior to the Peleg episode, in the days of Peleg, the earth was divided, it expanded. All geophysicists admit that the earth has expanded in diameter. Prior to the flood and prior to the Peleg episode, the diameter of the earth was slightly smaller. We have some consultants at the Creation Evidence Museum who are atmospheric scientists and engineers who've run calculations for me to show that if you diminish the size of the globe some 10 to 12%, something wonderful happens. You maintain the same mass, but you shrink the volume. It's smaller, weighs more per cubic centimeter, which gives you a greater gravitational attraction at sea level, which essentially doubles the atmospheric pressure. Did you get that? Prior to the flood and prior to the Peleg episode, we had about twice our current atmospheric pressure. 16 times at Texas A&M University, I've been under 2 atmospheres of pressure. What does it feel like? It feels like you belong there. Is it harder or easier to breathe in 2 atmospheres of pressure? Much easier to breathe. Once you equalize the lungs, and if a child were born in that, it would be equalized automatically. Once you equalize the lungs, et cetera, and the ears, the eustachian tubes, et cetera, you feel like you belong, and you never have to reach for a breath of air. It's automatically there. It's a wonderful world at 2 atmospheres of pressure. My wife is a universal reactor. She was at the point, I had had her at that point to 17 specialists. They'd given up on her and said, you'll lose your wife. So I said, well, I'm doing some research on a hyperbaric pre-flood context, and let's make arrangements to get her into a hyperbaric oxygen therapy context. So we took her to Texas A&M, put her under 2 atmospheres of pressure with enriched oxygen, and she's now living. She's praying for me, I think, at this moment. If not, she's watching television. No, she doesn't watch a lot of television. I think she's praying for me. That's what she tells me she's doing, and I'm sure she is. But in the world before the flood, we had approximately twice our current atmospheric pressure. Why could my own wife have such response under 2 atmospheres of pressure with enriched oxygen? Because at Texas A&M they found that if you double the atmospheric pressure, you triple the assimilation of available oxygen. Did you get that? If you double the atmospheric pressure, the hemoglobin can't pick up any more. It's saturated with 4 oxygen molecules. So it doesn't do any good to have the old oxygen tent. Instead, what happens is, under 2 atmospheres of pressure, or as you approach 2 atmospheres of pressure, the entire hemoglobin, the entire blood plasma becomes saturated with oxygen. Kids, that solves the problem of the dinosaurs. The dinosaurs had small lung capacities. I've discovered and directed the excavation of 14 different dinosaurs. They all had small lung capacities, either from our direct examination or by inference of the bone structure. Small lung capacities. If you were to put one on Highway 10 running near here, he couldn't get out of the way of the semis. In today's atmosphere, he couldn't get enough oxygen, get enough blood, oxygen in the blood for appropriate metabolism. But in the world before the flood, the dinosaurs could have a field day. So my wife, one day, I was telling the group at breakfast this morning, one day we went in, my wife was wheeled in the wheelchair, and Dr. Fife, just before going into 2 atmospheres of pressure with enriched oxygen, Dr. Fife looked down and he said, "What's that on your foot?" My wife said, "Oh, I dropped some hot water on it yesterday. It'll be all right." He said, "That's oozing." He said, "That's an open wound." She said, "I know it, but it'll be all right." He said, "We'll take care of it." Now, I wanted to see that. I asked an individual who was sitting with me at breakfast today who asked a question about that. He has some medical background, and I said, "Do we have a medical doctor here? I need your help. The audience needs your help if I keep talking too long. Do we have a nurse? Anyone with medical? Okay, excellent. How long does it take for an open wound to heal?" Okay, with a child, young, metabolism working better, about a week. For an adult, 2 or 3 weeks, that's right, depending on the health of the individual. And my wife's health was compromised. So let's say 10 days. 10 days would be a good norm for a very healthy person. But here's my wife with compromised health. And Dr. Fife said, "We'll take care of it." We wheeled her into the hyperbaric chamber, closed the door, pumped it up to 2 atmospheres of pressure. He used a system where he put a helmet and a plastic apron so he could give her alone the oxygen. I wasn't getting oxygen because I wasn't paying for it. Gave her the oxygen, 100% oxygen. Now, you can't live under 100% oxygen except for short duration. You have to use it up, otherwise you'll build oxygen toxicity. So, ran the oxygen to her head, and so she leaned back, and she had that treatment 22 times, and it saved her life. Then, he ran another oxygen line past her ankle because there was that open wound. How long should it take for it to heal? At least 2 weeks for an adult. Wow. So he ran that tube past her ankle, performed a very sophisticated medical procedure. He took a plastic bag, engulfed her foot and ankle, crimped it, took duct tape and wrapped it up. Yeah, that's what you do in surgery. Sat back, and he and I talked about the research and what was going on with our hyperbaric biospheric research and so forth. About 45 minutes later. How long? 45 minutes. My wife said, "I think I've had enough oxygen today." You see, when you saturate the deep cell tissue, you get detoxification and it becomes a little uncomfortable. So she said, "I think I've had enough oxygen for today." And he said, "Great." He reached up, turned off the feeder to the tubes, took the helmet off her head, and then I wanted to see. He knelt down, unraveled the duct tape, took off the plastic bag, and that open, oozing wound was healed in 45 minutes. Now, in the pre-flood world, no wonder people lived so long. That's one of the parameters. But I want to illustrate this, and I've got just enough time to do it. We have a living illustration here today. On the creation of the 21st century, I talked about the additional atmospheric pressure. I talked about the canopy above the earth. You need the tapes back there to get all of this. And I talked about the stronger electromagnetic field. That's vitally important. We're losing Earth's electromagnetic field. Twice I've lectured at NASA. They put me in direct communication. No, they didn't want the creation model at NASA. I don't know why. They're the world's leading atheistic academic institution. And so they didn't want the creation model, but they did want the science regarding Earth's original ecosphere, and I do hold some patents on that. So they invited me twice to speak, and I'm very thankful for that. All I had to do at the end, if I'd wanted to, was say, you'll find everything I'm saying in Genesis chapter, and just turn over. But I had to justify it scientifically. And by the way, I think we should be able to give an answer to every man that asketh us a reason for the hope that is within us with meekness and fear. I think we should do good science. I think we should have qualified answers that meet scientific scrutiny. And all God's people said, amen. And those answers are available. Back to this. So, Dr. Okuna is the world's leading expert on Earth's magnetic field. So he and I had a lengthy discourse together, and he admitted readily, we're losing this field. In the tapes at the back and in the book, I show that we have documentation as to the strength of the field some centuries ago and how we've lost it today. And that's part of the reason we know the Earth system is young, only part of the reason. But prior to the flood, we had approximately 5 Gauss of DC energy, not AC. AC will kill you. Too much DC will kill you. DC pulsed energy. We're able to monitor the field. It is now down to 0.5 Gauss. It's only 1/10 of what it was. We've been doing some research on snake venom, and we found that when you put viperous creatures, poisonous, toxic creatures, under 2 atmospheres of pressure with stronger electromagnetic energy, with the right oxygen ratio, the right carbon dioxide ratio, and other factors, all given in the video series at the back and some in the book. When you put all this together, in just 4 weeks, we completely altered the structure of snake venom. That's never been done before. Now, Dr. Quazzo, are you here? Yes. I think you'll appreciate this. We took the venom, we milked the snakes. We milked the snakes? Well, I delegate certain responsibilities. I had Dr. Robert Popplewell, a licensed herpetologist, milk the snakes. We documented every step, took them to an independent lab, and they analyzed them. Watch closely. Are you still awake? Have you ever seen snake venom under scanning electron microscopic analysis? It looks like gnarled spaghetti. That's because of the sulfide bonds, and that's the basic toxicity parameter, the sulfide bonds, and it crimps them all over the place. But in just 4 weeks, in just having them in a pre-flood context, we orchestrated them completely so that they were stronger and orchestrated. Theoretically, we've neutralized the venom, we've strengthened it. By the way, snake venom is the most complicated protein structure in biological nature. There are entities, there are research groups using snake venom to cure cancer, but they only know to strain the snake venom. But we in creation scientific research, and I, the patent holder, have the technology on actually altering the structure of the snake venom. But here's what I wanted Dr. Quazzo to know. They call me back to the lab. They run some more experiments, and they ran electrophoresis where you have a printout of the protein expression. And they called me to the lab, and they said, this has never been done before. You've done something that, let us co-publish with you on this. And so probably that's going to happen. They showed me the ambient protein expression in the electrophoresis column, protein expression, and they said, this is from your ambient group, and the very same snakes were in the biosphere. Here's the biospheric group. Watch. This explains a lot of evolutionary interpretation, variation. which is really there by creation to begin with. Remember the perspective of the kids? They didn't quite get it right. Watch. He showed the second column. He said, look, just by having the same species in the biosphere simulating whatever parameters you had, you have enhanced this protein structure, you have diminished this protein structure, you have eliminated this protein structure, and you've expressed protein structure that's not even in the original ambient expression. Did you get that? That means that designed within the genetic potential of the creature is adaptability under varying ecological conditions. And Dr. Quazzo, it'll be interesting to talk to you about that and the scientific interpretation of that. Now, I've got 3 minutes to give an illustration for you. We had these snakes and fruit flies in the second generation. We tripled the adult lifespan of fruit flies in the second generation. Harvard's never done that without genetic manipulation or selective breeding. We just used common Drosophila melanogaster field stock. And in the second generation, we tripled their adult lifespan. Did you get that? That's the equivalent of your living to be 200 years of age, even with your damaged DNA. So, this is good scientific research. But let me conclude with this. One of the things we found in working with these vipers was that you completely alter the structure of the venom if you alter the context, and especially if you alter the electromagnetic parameter and give them pulsed electromagnetic energy. So, what we have found, now this is not the introduction of new evolutionary development. The variation is all within the genetics that God put there to begin with. One life form does not become another life form. There are boundaries. Okay, watch closely. Since we knew that pulsed electromagnetic energy at the right level would alter things, one of our researchers, a medical researcher, we do not perform medical experiments. I'm not licensed to do so. I'm not qualified to do so. So I get the practitioners to do that. We began to run experiments with what would happen if you used a stun gun with a low voltage stun gun and applied that under crisis conditions. And we found that, and this was verified at Oklahoma State University in the medical department, no matter what, rattlesnake, you have a lot of rattlesnakes here in Florida, copperheads, right? This might save your life, and I've got 26 seconds. I need Jesse to come up here. Jesse Butler, last week, was bitten by a brown recluse spider. Right, Jesse? Mm-hmm. Didn't hurt at first, but after a while, there's a bullseye that builds up and necrosis, that is, actual corruption and decay of the flesh. After a while, did it hurt?
No, sir.
Didn't hurt you, huh? You were not going to cry under any circumstances, right? But I understand that it started eating a hole in your hand. Let me see your hand. There's no hole there now. What'd your daddy do? He saw a television program that I had a medical doctor on. He got a stun gun and applied that. And it was hurting, I understand, but once he applied the stun gun, and the stun gun hurt a little bit, didn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you cry? No. Hey, good deal. Then, in a matter of seconds, it stopped hurting and began healing because the venom was neutralized. Thank you. Thank you, Jesse. Let's give this young man a hand. We're right on schedule. The entire point is the creation model works. Do not go out and hook electrical wires to yourself or anybody else. Under crisis conditions, I've led 3 scientific expeditions in the jungles of Papua New Guinea. We have snakes there, the 2-step snakes, 20 minutes you're dead. Scorpions whose sting can kill you in 8 minutes. Spiders whose bite can kill you in 3 minutes. No fear. Why not? Because we had stun guns with us, and we applied them immediately when there was a problem. Neutralize the toxicity, the venom, and living proof the creation model works. Thank you.